Hey folks, it's Jeremy, the host of Blammo. Thanks so much for listening. This is a preview of one of our exclusive shows on Patreon. These are member-supported shows, meaning they only happen because of our incredible members and community. So check out a preview of the episode, and if you like it, consider joining us on Patreon at patreon.com/Blammo, where we have tons of exclusive Blammo episodes, shows, our amazing Slack group, and we're adding new things for members all the time. If not, no worries, we still love you, and we literally have hundreds of episodes of Blammo all free for you to dive into. Thanks so much.
Hey, Peter.
Hey, Derek, how you doing?
Doing pretty well. How about you?
I'm doing well. We have a guest on the podcast today.
We do. Her name is Savannah Yarborough. She's the founder of SAVAS. And I think anyone who has read my writing for a while will probably be familiar with her work because I've talked about it a bunch. I think she sits in this really unique position of doing bespoke custom work, but also ready-to-wear and design, which are often typically very different fields in the world of menswear. But she sits in the middle of all of that, and I think represents one of the more exciting kind of parts of craft-based menswear today. So welcome to the pod, Savannah.
Thanks, Derek and Peter. I'm really excited to be here.
Welcome.
Tell me a bit about how you started the company SAVAS.
Wow. Okay. I don't know if we have enough time for that today, but I actually started it with the absolute intention of making one leather jacket at a time. This was almost 10 years ago. Within the next 2 months, we'll hit 10 years. And I really didn't start it as a business. It was an idea that just kept going.
You mean you were just thinking of doing it for friends, for a few musicians that you knew, a few artists that you knew? How did it begin? What were your first clients?
My first clients were friends of mine who knew that I could cut. And I had trained at Central St. Martin's to learn fit and menswear and all of the things that you gather in British art school. And it was a wild time. But being in Nashville, which is where I was living at the time, I felt as though there was an opportunity to blend this rock and roll vibe of Nashville with this European British tailoring. And I didn't have a plan for how it was going to go, so I just started one at a time.
When you decided to go and learn how to cut, that was in London, I imagine?
Yes, it was.
And then how many years did you spend there? And then when you were finished, well, how long were you there? When you finished, did you think, I could do this for a few more years? Or did you say, I'm going straight back home?
So I got my bachelor's degree from St. Martin's in menswear design. And so I was there for 4.5 years from 2007 until 2012. And I did not immediately start SAVAS from there.
Did you stay locally there in the UK and try your hand at a few tailoring houses? Or did you just kind of float for a minute as you gathered what you wanted to do next?
I wish I had floated, but I actually already had a job. So I was the head of men's design for Billy Reed straight out of college, which is what led me to Nashville at the time. Close enough to home, but not quite. I don't think I took a week off between graduation and full-time design job.
Hit the pavement running.
Yes.
You were raised in Alabama, right?
Yeah, in Birmingham.
So did you go to Central St. Martin's straight out of high school?
I went there after a 6-month stint in pre-law at the University of Alabama, where I realized I was on the wrong path and I did not want to be, I didn't want to be an attorney.
Pre-law, that's a huge career shift.
It was. And, I didn't really grow up in a creative environment. It took me meeting people from the outside world, outside of the community I grew up in, to realize that there was more for me to learn and that there might actually be a place that felt like it was what I was supposed to be doing instead of what I had been told I was supposed to be doing.
Were you interested in fashion at the time when you were in high school or in those early days of pre-law?
Yeah. So in high school, I was a part of the counterculture world of aggressive rollerblading as a teenager. And which is like I did, X Games and all the tricks and grinding and all the things that you
Nice.
do. It was really fun and introduced me to so much more outside of the kind of standard Southern upbringing. And I was always cutting and sewing garments for myself, just, collecting old t-shirts and cutting them down to fit or altering my clothes because I was always really small. So I could never quite buy the clothes that I wanted. So I had to adjust everything. It just took me a while to realize that it could actually be a career and not just a hobby.
So you were a competitive rollerblader?
Yes.
That's awesome. That's amazing.
It was really fun. And I've told the story in different sort of snippets before, but rollerblading is really, I always consider it the catalyst for me forging my own path in everything that I've done.
So was that the motivator that prompted you, that catapulted you to go into different genres of style, of different creative avenues of expression?
Absolutely.
Now, my understanding is that when you're studying fashion in a formal setting, learning pattern making for ready to wear is different than learning pattern making for custom. Did you study bespoke pattern making or ready to wear pattern making when you were in school?
So at Central St. Martin's I don't know if it's the same today, but when I was there, we studied based on different types of garments that we were going to be constructing. So we did do an entire almost semester dedicated to tailoring that was built on the foundational principles of British cutting of jackets and trousers and shirts that could be adapted into the bespoke process. And so that was a big part of it. But we also learned from, a denim specialist how you cut denims and how you work out your seam allowances and your fits and all of the things that apply to all different types of categories. So it was more about the category of garment versus the type of business principles you would apply it to later.
That's really interesting because I don't know if I'm being unfair about this, but sometimes it seems like there are many designers who don't have that background in pattern making and sewing. And this has been cited, numerous times. Rick Owens, for example, constantly stresses that if you're a designer, you have to learn how to take apart garments. You have to know how to make garments. You have to know how to sew. You have to know how to do pattern making. But many designers are essentially just designers and they're sketching, and then they'll work with a pattern maker or they'll, work with a factory to create those garments. Do you feel that training is critical to doing what you do?
Without question. I am in Rick Owens' camp on that. And I love the fact of how adamant he is about that, because it is a real pain point when you are a designer who has dedicated your time and life, for decades to learn how to tell the height of a sleeve cap from 50 paces. And meanwhile, it's, there's thousands of brands that are like, oh, we're designers, but they have to lean on. I mean, I now have a team of people because I can't necessarily always be with every client about a sleeve pitch. So I have grown that team, but for the first, 6 years, it was just me.
Yeah. How do you feel that shapes your perspective when you know the technical details of pattern making and sewing?
You can stand in front of anything you make when you understand how it fits. And when you understand the person that's going to be wearing it. And I think it oftentimes has taken me a minute to feel that I can really move with conviction when I'm communicating with a client or with people on the outside. Like I can speak to the way a sleeve is set in a very different way, even if I'm standing there with my sewers. If I personally know how challenging it is to ease 3/8 of an inch into a sleeve in a calfskin that's 0.5 millimeters thick. Right. And if I can speak to those details because I have sat down and done it, or I can sit down and help them figure out how to do it, it changes the whole conversation when you're, sort of tested down the road, because I'm not designing a look, right?
Is it true of what Rick Owens says that most designers don't necessarily have that background nowadays, that most are just sketching?
I hate to stereotype, but I would say yes.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. I just think when you feel the garments and you try the garments on that are designed by someone who understands cut and fit, you can tell.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me about your experience working at Billy Reid. How did you get that job and what was the experience like? How long were you there for?
So I got that job thanks to my mother, who said, "You're coming home. You should go interview with this designer in Alabama." And this was, I think, in sort of summer of 2010. And I was looking for an internship. And, I had grand plans to go on to Milan and get high fashion, really creative jobs. I had no intention of going back to the South. And it ended up that they had never really had a design assistant before. And so I signed on for an internship. And 2 months into that, Billy and I had kind of gotten into this rhythm where I really understood his vision and I could portray it to our factories and pattern makers and to him in a really beautiful sketch format that he had never had before. So 2 months in, I was in New York at, I think we had a design studio there at the time. And Billy and the CEO were like, "Hey, we want to give you a job. You're now going to be the head of men's," And I was like,
you were
wait
the
a minute.
head of men's?
I was the senior men's designer. It was me
Okay.
and then Billy. So he and I worked on all avenues of the product.
Nice.
All categories. I mean, I jumped in with that and I was still in school. So I actually, when it came time for my placement internship year to be over, I ended up staying on staff through my graduate year for Billy. And we were, I would say, the first people to do, design calls over Skype, because I would be holding up pencil sketches of coats and it would be 3 a.m. And he's like, I don't know about that pocket. What do you think about this raglan sleeve? And that was 2011.
You were there from what years? 2011 till?
So I think the first collections that I worked on was the summer of 2010, which we were designing, I think, spring 2011. And then I worked with him full time through 2014 and then briefly left for a 6-month period of, grass is greener, and then decided to start SAVAS. So when I did that, I actually went back to Billy part-time or as a consultant for their footwear and accessories and leathers.
I feel like Billy Reid got a lot of attention during those years. I remember they were getting a lot of press from GQ. They're kind of a hot brand at the moment. And they also kind of predated to some degree, because I feel at this moment, there's so much attention on the kind of Southern menswear style and Western style and the kind of more country style. And I feel like Billy Reid predated that a little bit. But they were getting a lot of accolades at that time from 2010 to 2014, I feel.
Yeah, it was I always say it was the heyday. I mean, we were rocking and rolling as a brand. My first big project literally went to the desk of Anna Wintour for the CFDA fashion fund.
Did you work on the Billy Reid peacoat that ended up being in a James Bond film?
So I actually did not. They had designed that, I think, the season before. So I was there when we launched it, but I did not design the big, heavy Melton one that was some crazy 900-gram fabric.
Yeah, I remember that.
And that was a wild, fun story.
Really? How so?
Because Daniel bought it for himself in the store.
Oh.
And it was kind of a maverick move from one of the internal e-com guys to figure out how to get it in the movie. And that coat kind of changed the whole thing there.
So he bought it first as a customer, and then you're like, okay, how are we going to see if we can sneak this into the movie?
I think it involved some message boards and other things, which, I don't know a whole lot about, but I know they exist.
I read somewhere that while you were at Billy Reid, you experimented with some finishing techniques like soaking a leather jacket in a bathtub or something. Is that right?
Oh, yes. Yes. I had a very hands-on design job. And that one was there was a season where there was no women's designer. So, hello, Sav, can you draw women? I was like, sure. So I designed a jacket that the sketch of it, I remember to this day, and I honestly wish I still had it. I think I've been on the forever chase of trying to replicate in my mind the feeling of that first one. And when it was made in a really oiled, densely oiled, intended to be washed or rinsed, lamb's leather. And when it came in, I think the manufacturer had forgotten to wash it. And so I put it in the bathtub because it looked really flat and not reminiscent of what I had wanted it to. And then I wore it for 3 days. while it
3 days straight.
and while it dried. I mean, I took it off to like shower and go to sleep. Yeah. But that was honestly like the first real leather piece that I worked on. So I think it's just always held this special place. And the funny thing is the factory could never replicate the wash, of course, because that's the way it always goes. And I was able to keep that sample. And then the day I left, Billy was like, "Can I trade you for a black one?" Because like he couldn't he wouldn't let it go because it was such an epic wash. And like, I think at some point they eventually figured out how to replicate it the same. But it was the first jacket I ever had.
Is it not as simple as just dunking a whole batch of leather jackets in tubs?
I'm sure it is, but to think about the way it's going to shrink. And I mean, if you think about like the Levi's, if you're going to soak in your own jeans and sit there and like the shrink to fits, like it's never going to be the same when they blow them up with air and some guys, spraying them with a hose because that's what somebody told them to do.
Jump into the ocean.
I mean, I've seen the way like those kind of, the way the washed jackets look that give it that kind of rumply thing. I don't know. It just never feels, for lack of a better word, authentic.
Was that your first experience doing things with leather? Because before, if you were trained in other textiles and then you deal with leather, were you like, whoa, this is something completely different, and I think I want to start doing this from now on?
Yeah, so it was definitely very inspiring. I had never owned a leather jacket before, so I think really the bug that bit me first wasn't about how do I work with this material. It was, holy shit, what did that just do to me? Because I feel different when I'm wearing this. And hindsight is 2020. I can look back and see that piece became like my power piece for a long time. And I think that's where the real seed was planted for me, as well as the people who were making these things. I knew they were different. They weren't just sewers. They weren't just cutters. They are such like the leather world of people who have like spent their lives in the business, from the guys in the tannery to the cutters, the pattern makers. Like it's a whole different beast. And everybody's got like a big old character and a lot to say. And I remember I took this like thick Horween leather to the pattern maker in New York at the factory that we worked with. And he said, "You can't make a jacket out of that. The only thing you can make is a garage door." And I was like, cool.
It was that
Thanks.
beefy.
It was that beefy. And sure enough, I mean, we made a jacket and it was awesome looking. But yeah, so that kind of started the thing for me.
There is something about a leather jacket, I feel, that when you put it on, it does make you feel awesome.
It has transformative power for sure.
Yeah, which is something I wanted to touch on, is that sometimes I get a lot of emails from readers who are like, I think I want to get a leather jacket, but I'm not sure if I'm a leather jacket kind of guy. But I feel there's a very clean, dressy leather jacket that's possible. Trying to, like if you think of like Ralph Lauren Purple Label, I mean, they make those leather jackets for guys who normally wear tailored clothing. And then there's rugged leather jackets. There are designer leather jackets like Margiela's 5-zip. I'm a big fan of. Rick Owens obviously does really great leather jackets. And so I feel there's a leather jacket for every type of guy, whether you're dressy or rugged or whatever. When you started your business, you did a lot of bespoke work. What is the process like? How does one go about finding the right leather jacket?
My favorite thing to do is the psychological experiment, which
yes, I want to hear about this.
It doesn't even involve talking. I feel like I have found my place in the world as the person who knows where someone is going to end up.
Okay.
And I love kind of figuring that out and then letting them figure it out for themselves and setting them up to go on that journey. Because a leather jacket is really scary if you think about it. I mean, socially, we see, the outlaws and the rebels, and then we see the cigar smoking, men on their yachts, that everybody feels not like me or, a guy that's going to put themselves in that space. It always kind of appears as a costume for people unless they have the conviction and confidence in their own personal style to know because they've either done their research or they've just fallen in love with one. But there is a thing that happens, and I call it the Cinderella syndrome, because people change not in the way they feel or what their style is, but they change the way they see themselves when they put the right jacket on. And I watch it happen, and I don't know how to describe it, but it is like, it's like a kid at Disneyland. Like all of a sudden they are like, holy shit, this is me. And I mean, it happened to us this morning in the store,
Oh, wow.
It's like the sorting hat. It just, it finds its way. And I mean, that honestly is like part of, I don't want to jump the gun, but that's where our ready to wear came from and the need for it.
Well, what do you mean? What do you mean? Why did you see the need for ready to wear after doing bespoke for so long?
Because
Want to hear the rest? Listen to the full episode and many more other exclusive episodes over on our Patreon. Visit patreon.com/Blamo to sign up and join the Blam fam. You also get access to our exclusive members-only Slack group where we chat about this and a ton of other things. So head over to patreon.com/Blamo and we'll see you there.